Have you ever been caught in a moment that feels so wrong, but so electrifying you can't ignore it? What would you do if your world was turned upside down by someone you thought you could trust? This is my story. Let me tell you about something that happened to me a while ago. One of those moments that sticks with you, leaving you questioning everything. It started as a typical Friday evening. I was getting ready for a night out with my husband. I picked out a simple outfit, a mini skirt and a fitted top. Nothing too flashy, just something that made me feel confident. Looking in the mirror, I felt good about myself for the first time in a while. Little did I know that confidence was about to be tested in ways I never expected. My husband and I were heading to a casual bar to meet some of his friends. I wasn't particularly thrilled, but I went along to make him happy. As we walked in, the noise and energy of the place hit us. He spotted his friends right away, and as expected, immediately gravitated toward them, leaving me to fend for myself. It wasn't unusual. I was used to it. I decided to grab a drink and make the best of it. As I approached the bar, I noticed one of his friends, Will. He was chatting with a couple of people, but stopped mid-conversation when he saw me. His eyes lingered a little too long, scanning me in a way that made me uncomfortable. It wasn't a friendly glance. It was something else entirely, something I wasn't ready for. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was imagining things, but the way he kept looking at me made it impossible to ignore. I finally got my drink and moved to the side, hoping to avoid any interaction. But Will had other plans. He made his way through the crowd, his eyes never leaving me. My stomach tightened as he approached. When he finally stood in front of me, I could feel the tension radiating off him. "Hey," he said, his voice overly casual, but his eyes betrayed something deeper. "Hey," I replied, forcing a smile and trying to keep things light. After all, this was my husband's friend. There shouldn't be anything weird about this. But then he said it. "You look great tonight." It wasn't the words themselves that made my skin crawl. It was the way he said them. His tone, his gaze, everything about it felt off. It wasn't a friendly compliment. It felt loaded, like he was trying to say something more without actually saying it. My heart started racing, and I suddenly felt trapped. "Thanks," I muttered, trying to brush it off. I turned slightly, hoping he'd take the hint and walk away, but he didn't. Instead, he leaned in closer, his voice dropping. "Does Jeff know you're wearing that?" The air around us shifted. My pulse quickened as his words sank in. It was a question, sure, but it was also a challenge, a line being crossed right in front of me. "Jeff trusts me," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. I wanted to end the conversation, to walk away, but Will wasn't letting it go. "I'm just saying," he smirked, his eyes scanning me again. "You look different tonight." I felt a rush of emotions: anger, confusion, disbelief. This was someone I'd known for years, someone I thought of as part of our extended family. Yet here he was, standing too close, saying things he had no right to say. And then it got worse. He reached out, his hand brushing against my arm. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it sent a shock through me. "You deserve to feel something different," he whispered, his voice low and filled with something I couldn't place, but knew I didn't want. I froze. My mind screamed at me to pull away, to find my husband, to end this right now. But my body wouldn't move. It was like I was caught in some invisible trap, paralyzed by the weight of the moment. "Will," I finally managed, my voice trembling. "This isn't okay. You need to stop." But he didn't back off. Instead, he leaned in even closer, his breath warm against my ear. "No one has to know," he said. "Just you and me. One night. That's all." And that was it. That was the moment where everything came crashing down. My chest tightened, my vision blurred, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I pulled back, putting as much space between us as I could manage. "I need to find Jeff," I said, my voice firmer now. I turned on my heel and walked away, leaving Will standing there, his smirk still etched on his face. When I found my husband, he was laughing with his friends, completely unaware of what had just happened. I wanted to tell him, to let him know what kind of person his friend really was, but the words wouldn't come. How could I explain what had just happened without shattering everything? The rest of the night passed in a blur. I couldn't focus, couldn't shake the feeling of Will's eyes on me, even when I couldn't see him. And then, as if to seal the nightmare, my phone buzzed. A message from Will. "You're going to think about this, aren't you?" I locked my phone and shoved it into my pocket, my hands trembling. That was the moment I knew this wasn't over. Will wasn't going to let it go, and the worst part, a small, stupid part of me couldn't stop wondering, what if? I pushed the thought away, focusing on my husband's laughter, his smile. This was what mattered. This was what I needed to hold on to. But deep down, I knew the damage had already been done. The cracks were there, and no matter how much I tried to ignore them, they weren't going away.